Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Going to see if this works. The last one didn't work. Today, okay, I hope this works. If it doesn't work, I have to go up to my house and move the router. In this class, we're going to be talking about detachment, but specifically how we understand detachment in relation to Grhasta life, because it's kind of a contradiction that if you're detached, why would, number one, you want to be married? Number two, how could you stay married? Because in any relationship, there's some attachment. So I want to tell a story we were trying to tell this story last, whenever it was, I think it was this Tuesday morning, but the internet connection went back. So I want to tell the story because it's edifying about detachment and Grhasta life and what it actually means, because if it's misunderstood, it can be the cause of problems. Either artificial renunciation, that could be a cause of a problem, or we're just entering the Grhasta ashram with the wrong expectations, or with understanding it in the wrong context, and then not entering the Grhasta ashram, but not actually entering into it because our conception of what it is could be wrong, and so what we're trying to create would be wrong, and so we're trying to create something that can't actually be. Yeah. How do we understand detachment in relation to Grhasta life? So, but I think this is applicable for those who are married, those who aren't married. So, 5th canto of Bhagavatam, 1st chapter, is a story about Maharaj Priyavrata. Maharaj Priyavrata had decided, well, before he was Maharaj, he was just Priyavrata. Priyavrata had decided that he didn't want to marry. Now, sometimes men decide they don't want to marry, but they're obligated by family duties to marry. For whatever reason. In today's society, it's different, but in a society in which renunciation was valued, many men decided they wanted to remain renounced. And they decided that because they didn't need female association, so they thought, if I don't really require it for being complete in my life, then there's no need to marry, and my life would be more simple. So when a man marries, it's either because he requires female association to feel complete or satisfied, or there's some obligation that he's fulfilling for his family, and he may be not inclined to marry. So this was the case of Priyavrata. He had decided that he didn't want to marry. And it so happened that he was the only son to become, only qualified son, or only available son to become king. And so his father is Swayambhuva Manu, and his father said, this is important, we require you to become king. And he said, I decided to remain single, I don't want to marry. And so he refused. And generally, obedient sons, cultured sons would not refuse their father, but this was important for him. He really wanted to remain single, he really didn't want to get married, he didn't feel he needed to get married. And as a single man, he could devote himself entirely to a spiritual practice, and that would be somewhat compromised if he were married. So he decided not to marry, and he told his father, Swayambhuva Manu, was basically like the ruler of the universe, from where we get the Manu Samhita, that I don't want to marry. And it was so important for him to marry that it came to the GBC, it came to Lord Brahma. So Lord Brahma is like the GBC, it goes all the way up. And Lord Brahma actually came and met him along with Swayambhuva Manu, and I believe Narada Muni. And others were there. So it was very, very important. And so because Brahma asked him, because Brahma came, he finally relented and agreed. So when this story was being told, that Priyavrata was very renounced, and then he decided to marry, or he did marry, Parikshit Maharaj asked a natural question. Why did Priyavrata marry if he was detached? That's a reasonable question. Generally, if a man is detached, he wouldn't marry. He wouldn't have any need to fulfill in being married. And marriage has so many obligations, and it's also considered those who are more attached would get married and those who are more detached wouldn't or wouldn't need to. So when Parikshit Maharaj found out that Priyavrata was detached, he naturally asked the question, if he was so detached, why did he get married? It doesn't make sense. So then Sukadeva Goswami told that story, that he didn't want to, but he was asked to get married. And he was detached even when he was married. So a question comes up, I don't know if you're thinking of this, but an interesting question comes up is, how could a man who's detached be a good husband and be a good father? Because it seems like to be a good husband or father, there has to be some degree of attachment for the wife and for the children. And here it said he was detached. You know, imagine you had a friend or a lover and they were just detached from you. It would be a strange relationship. Now, what's interesting about this story is that it says within this story that he was a very good father and he was a very good husband. And it uses the word affectionate. He was an affectionate husband and an affectionate father. Now, to think that detachment means lack of affection, we can understand it doesn't make sense, because Prabhupada was full of compassion and full of affection for his disciples. But at the same time, he was perfectly Krishna conscious and therefore perfectly detached. So does that mean he was detached from us? He didn't care about us? No, it doesn't mean that. What does it mean that he was detached? Well, he was attached to giving us Krishna consciousness, but somewhat detached from how we took it, because he couldn't force us. He couldn't force us to take Krishna consciousness. He gave it to us and it was up to us. So he's detached. He wasn't attached to us becoming his disciples for any kind of material benefit, prestige or money or whatever. But he was attached to us as a father, affectionate to us as a father, attached that we would become Krishna conscious. Loving in so many ways. So sometimes I think we misunderstand that detachment means that one is also detached from any kind of emotion within a relationship. And obviously that's not true. So I wanted to apply that same understanding within Grihastha ashram. And then I wanted you to ask questions, because in reflecting on these classes that we do Saturdays and Sundays, as opposed to me just broadcasting, disclaimer, detachment doesn't mean lack of affection. When I do the Bhagavatam class and then I broadcast it, I'm there for the people in the room. So I always don't get to focus on your questions. But in reflection on these classes, that a lot of these classes that we've been giving now it's been a year or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, or however, the questions take the class in different directions that I didn't intend to go necessarily, but that's good, because the questions are relevant. And I think some of the classes we've had have been extremely relevant because of your questions. So I wanted to encourage you to ask questions, but I wanted to just tell this story as a foundation for discussion, because I think it's really important. So, a devotee is kind, a devotee is humble, a devotee is selfless, a devotee is full of integrity, a devotee is compassionate, a devotee is forgiving, and so on. So, a devotee has all the qualities which are necessary for having amazing relationships. And devotee is also detached. But the Bhagavatam says the same attachment that we have for things in this world, if that attachment is applied to devotee, if I become attached to a devotee, that becomes my perfection. Now the problem is, we hear a lot of negative propaganda, and rightly so, about attachment to wife and family, especially in the context of materialistic family life. Because when we're reading the Bhagavatam and it's describing the horrors sometimes, or the miseries, or the difficulties, however you want to call it, of Grhasta life, it's specifically describing materialistic Grhasta life. And when it talks about attachment to wife and family, an ordinary man who's attached to wife and family is attached to enjoying his wife and to enjoying his children. So when I was just validating Krishna Karshini, because she asked such nice questions, and it's helped make the classes better. And it causes others to ask questions. Of course, you all ask questions. Many of you ask questions. They're all good questions. So Bhagavatam's talking about the attached householder. So when we talk about attachment, the clear distinction that we want to make is, when a man is attached to his wife and children, what is he attached to? Well, we know from experience, and we know the Bhagavatam says he's attached to the enjoyment that he gets from his wife, from his home, from his family, from his success, his wealth, his position. It's called Griha Meri Sukham. And specifically, sex, hitu cham, the sexual attraction, which is, Prabhupada said, the center of everything. And this morning I was listening to a lecture, not that I was listening to a lecture in preparation for this class, but Prabhupada said the pleasure one gets from the genital, if he doesn't overcome that, he can't get out of the material world. It's a binding force. It's like you've got chains around you and you've got yourself free from these chains, but there's one chain that's really hard to get rid of. And so it doesn't matter if you've got rid of all the other chains. You still have to get rid of this last chain, and that's the sexual change. So the man or the woman, as it may be, depending who you are, is attached to enjoying the husband, enjoying the children, enjoying the home, and so forth. That's what is called an attached. What Prabhupada calls, or Bhagavatam calls, Griha Medhi. Medhi means the center, Griha means the home. So the home is the center of everything. And Grhasta is a ashram. It's a place for spiritual advancement. So the context of family life for a devotee and for a non-devotee is much different. So, can I be detached and affectionate? And is affection necessary, and or is affection natural or not natural? Is affection bad? Is affection good? So, let's first define attachment as the desire to enjoy. So, desire to enjoy my children, and then desire to enjoy my wife, which for devotee is pretty much suicidal. We, as parents, are meant to train or help facilitate our children to become Krishna conscious, not to enjoy our children. Okay, when you grow up, my dear son or daughter, I want you to become very wealthy so that you can support me. Okay, that may be there in some context, the children protect the parents. But for us as devotees, the main focus is on how I can help my children become devotees, not how I can enjoy them. And in the same way, the main focus is how I can serve my husband, serve my wife, how together we can become Krishna conscious, not how I can enjoy. So it would be a little odd to be living with someone and not having any affection for them, don't you think? Someone that you raise a family with, if you're a man, living with a woman who bears children and takes care of them, don't you think it would be a little weird to be detached in the sense of not have affection? It would be. It would be awkward. But if someone misunderstands detachment and thinks, well, I should have no affection, then they may artificially try to repress themselves or become only I have internet interpretations. What does that mean? Prabhupada, sometimes he glorifies women who are attached to their husbands. A lady, Prabhupada said, he saw a man and woman, elderly, and living on the street. They had no place to live, and the wife was there cooking on the street, and he glorified, look, this woman will stay with his husband. There's some interruptions. Yeah, but there's no interruption from my side, so I don't know. It must be Eastern European problem. Anyone else having interruptions on the internet? Let me know. Of course, I don't know what to do. I'm on my data card now. And anyway, and so sometimes, Prabhupada would glorify these women who had these great attachments to their husband, and we see with divorce, the rate's so high, there's a lot of detachment, but that detachment actually is not spiritual detachment or Krishna consciousness detachment, it's just a lack of affection. It's almost like, dare I say, like subhuman consciousness. To be like, people are becoming detached from one another because they can no longer get sense gratification from that person. So they become detached. Of course, that's not detachment. So when we talk about Priyavrata being detached but being affectionate, he didn't want to get married. He had no desire to enjoy family life. So he gets married, and still that desire to enjoy family life is not there. But does that mean as a devotee he's not affectionate? Okay, I didn't want to enjoy family life. I was forced into this situation. So I'm not going to be affectionate. I'm not going to be nice and kind. Okay, that could be there. We have this story in Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. He was very detached. Obviously, when one is on that level, it's only Krishna, Krishna. But it's not, the story of Vishwanath Chakravarti. His guru said, you're too detached, you're neglecting your wife, you need to sleep in the same bed. And so he went in the bed, and all night he chanted japa. So, since I don't think we're all on that platform, I'm addressing the platform we're on. So there's some kind of weird detachment where, look, I don't need you. I don't need a husband. I don't need a wife. But my parents wanted me to marry you, and so I'm detached, and therefore I don't care about you. I don't have affection for you. That is, as I said, that really is not even human life yet. So Priyavrata, he shows an example. Okay, I don't need to get married, but it's necessary because I must be the next king, and my son will be the next prince. And he did it with affection because that's what's required in family life. Family life is relationships are all based on affection. So he's very affectionate. You can't, as most of you know, maybe we all know, that you can't raise healthy children without affection. So we wouldn't imagine that Priyavrata had absolutely no affection for his children. We can't imagine that he was cold and detached and didn't speak to them or didn't show them affection and kindness. That just wouldn't make sense. But as the Bhagavatam describes, perfect father, affectionate, perfect husband, affectionate. But the affection is not coming because he's attached. It's coming because he's a devotee. And it's natural to be affectionate to everyone. What to speak of your own family. So, I thought that was an important point of that chapter, of that story of Priyavrata. Because the basis of Grhasta life is or one of the bases, is kindness, which manifests in generosity and affection and caring and so forth, even if one is detached. And I think we may misunderstand detachment as not caring, or detaching emotionally. Now, what people often do in bad relationship is they detach emotionally, and detaching emotionally is not a sign that a person's evolved spiritually. It's a sign that they're not fulfilled perhaps in family life, or they wanted something that they didn't get, or they misunderstand family life, or they misunderstand the whole thing. If you enter family life and thinking, I want sense gratification, and then you don't get it, you might detach, thinking, well, I'm not happy, I'm not getting what I want. So we need to have needs met within family life, but the needs of sense gratification, which most people enter family life for, are minimized in Krishna consciousness. And the spiritual needs, that's what ultimately we would want fulfilled. And basic material needs, but not, in minimal amounts of salt, of sense gratification, just enough. So I was thinking of an example, and I think this is appropriate, because what I'm seeing a lot is that often people enter Grhasta life with wrong conceptions, wrong expectations. And so when those expectations aren't fulfilled, they create problems for themselves, and they create problems for their spouses. And if they knew what was the proper expectation, that wouldn't be there. So I want to give you an example, and then I'll explain it, and then I'll ask you a question. What should they do the horoscope? Yeah. Yeah, but don't do it with a bad astrologer, because bad astrologers will tell you you're compatible when you're not, because they don't know how to do it holistically. So you need to find a good astrologer with a good track record, and look at all his compatible marriages and see how they worked out, because we have friends who were told by a so-called astrologer they're the most compatible couple God has ever created, and before they were married they were fighting, and after they're married they're fighting, and they're just, and then I have a friend who's an astrologer, and she said, I did their astrology and I told them not to get married. So, compatibility is important. The more incompatibility is there, the more you're going to have to work on the marriage, the more difficult it will be, the more there'll be to tolerate and so forth. Especially in terms of one's varna and ashram, family background and so forth. Modes. If you're in sattvagun and your spouse is in tamagun, it's not going to work. If you're in passion, generally the woman may be in passion, the man in goodness, but Prabhupada said a man in passion, a woman in goodness, that doesn't work either. Anyway, so we're in Alachua. This is my example. We're in Alachua. And if you want to go to the beach we normally go to, all the devotees go to when they go to the beach, that's almost 2 hours away. So Leelananda is watching, so we'll use Leelananda, because Leelananda is lives in Alachua. I don't know if you're here in Alachua now, but he's in China or was in China. So I call up Leelananda and I say, Leelananda, you want to go to St. Augustine, to the beach. I'm renting a house. I got the whole weekend. We'll go Friday. We'll go Saturday morning. We'll leave early, like 5 o'clock, and then we'll come back Sunday night. He goes, yeah, that sounds great. I'd love to. So I pick Leelananda up and I say, I'm really tired. Can you drive? So he's tired also, but somehow he drives. And before we get there, I say, Leelananda, can you go shopping? We don't have anything for breakfast. And I sit in the car sleeping. He shops. And we get there. I say, Leelananda, can you cook the breakfast? So he's like, oh, whatever. And he cooks it. And then after we cook, I say, Leelananda, can you clean this place? Because it's dirty. And it's like, Leelananda's like wondering, I thought I was just going to the beach to have some fun. And now I'm driving, I'm shopping, I'm cooking. And then we get to the beach. I go, Leelananda, could you carry all these umbrellas and all this? And he's carrying like 40 kilos of stuff. And he's like wondering what's happening. And he's like not happy about this, because he just thought he was going to the beach to have a good time. So what's the analogy? Yeah, you thought you were going to get married to have a good time. Yeah, you have to cook a little, and you have to clean a little. You have to drive a little. You have to carry some weights. By the way, you have to work a lot. And there's so many things. And yes, you will have a nice time at the beach, but you have to do these other things. But another example that I was giving was that, let's say Leelananda was just like a young man that didn't have much money, and he couldn't even afford to go to the beach and stay in this nice house. So I call him up and I say, Leelananda, I have this place at the beach. Can you come with me? We can spend the weekend together. You can, have most of the day free for the beach. But I just need you to drive and do some cooking and cleaning. And, say the cooking and cleaning will just take a few hours, and a little shopping, maybe 3 hours. And Leelananda's thinking, I have no money, and if I were to go to St. Augustine, pay for the gas, pay for this little apartment, it would cost me $200-300. And he only wants me to work for like 3 hours. That's almost like $100 an hour. That's great. Yeah, I'll do it. Sure, no problem. He's going within another context. Now he's understanding what he has to do, but because he already understands that, when I ask him, okay, can you drive, can you cook, can you shop, can you clean? He's like, of course, no problem, because he already expects that. So I think a lot of people enter marriage thinking they're just kind of going on vacation to the beach, and they don't realize what it means. So they have a context of, oh, I'm going to enjoy my wife, or I'm going to enjoy my family. It's not exactly like that. If you enter with the right context, which is, I'm going to serve, we're going to help one another, we're going to work together to be Krishna conscious, we're going to work together to help spread Krishna consciousness, we're going to fulfill the needs of one another, and like that, then when your spouse says, I need your help to do this, I need you to clean that, I need you to drive here, I need you to carry this, it's like, sure, of course. And when the romance dies down and you're left with this person, you understand, because of the context of the marriage, that this is the person, not who I'm having a romantic fling and relationship, and when it ends, I'll get another one. You understand this is the person with whom I'm working together to be Krishna conscious, and I'm meant to help this person. So within that context, the expectations are different. So I just wanted to talk about expectations, because sometimes people say, well, expectations are the cause of problems, and that's not true. The wrong expectations are the causes of problems. To say you shouldn't have expectations means that you wouldn't really be alive. Sometimes it is said we shouldn't make assumptions, and that's true. We shouldn't make wrong assumptions. It's like if I say, I will talk to you on Skype at 8 p.m. tonight, you will expect and assume that I will do that because I said that. So that assumption is totally normal and valid. If I said, I can't talk tonight at 8 o'clock, and you expected me to talk, and you expected that whenever you were ready to talk, I should be ready to talk, that expectation is not grounded in something which is realistic. So unrealistic expectation is the cause of problems. And I think one of the biggest problems that I see in the Grhasta ashram is people's understanding of the Grhasta ashram is often not clear or not grounded, and therefore their expectations are not grounded, and they have expectations which are difficult or impossible to meet, or they have expectations which may be met, but are not the expectations that Prabhupada and Shastra have delineated that we should have. So expectations is not a problem, as long as you understand the context of the marriage and the expectations are the right expectations. But if you have the wrong expectations, then you will be let down. Now, divorce rate. They say in America divorce rate is 50%, but that's not true. Because that's only the rate of divorce. The breakup rate between boyfriend and girlfriend or significant others or people living together, the breakup rate has to be close to 80% because young boys and young girls in high school, they're always coming together breaking up. So, average young people had many boyfriends and girlfriends before they get married. So even if they stay married, they've probably broken up many times before that. So the breakup rate is extremely high, which means people they're not doing well in relationships. And a lot of that is because what they want to get out of the relationship, the other person can't give. And what they're expecting to get is not what that relationship is meant to give. So if you enter into a relationship expecting it to do something it's not meant to do, you're going to be disappointed. I have a phone, it does certain things, but my phone, I can't just, pick a color and put my phone over my house and it paints my house, at least not yet. No one has created that app. But let's say I expected that. And I go, well, my phone should be able to paint my house, and my phone should also be able to, write things for me. So I say, read this article and write a summary. My phone can't do that. Maybe in the future it can, but it can't do it now. So I would be very frustrated, expecting my phone to do something that it can't do, and get really angry. And so a lot of the problem in Grhasta life is we're expecting our partners to be and do something that they're not really meant to be and do. They can't do. And we're expecting, it's a bigger problem, we're expecting a lot of our problems to be solved by our partner, a lot of our unhappiness to go away. We're expecting our partner to build us up, and that does happen. But that was never exactly Prabhupada's conception. His conception of marriage was more of the husband protecting, taking care of the wife serving the husband, together being peaceful, and together working together to advance spiritually. So if that's the expectation and that's what we focus on, that is achievable. That is not difficult to achieve through acting in certain ways. We can achieve that much more easily than achieving happiness from sense gratification that we get from this person. And that's why there's so much divorce, because people's expectations or assumptions of marriage are overly romantic and quite, in my opinion, impractical. Romance, they say, it lasts 2 years. And then when the romance is over, if you're addicted to romance, you're going to need another partner, because there'll be no more sensual highs coming from that. But a relationship in Krishna consciousness, of course, is much deeper, because we're cultivating Krishna consciousness together. So that's the real romance in a sense. So Radhapriya says, the most important thing in any relationship is the respect, integrity, honesty, no matter the level of the friendship relationships in a couple. If that does not exist, any link. Yeah. Well, if I respect my spouse, then I will not try to exploit or enjoy them, right? So that was my point of Priyavrata. He was detached, but that meant he had respect. As a devotee, he had integrity, honesty, all these things. And we somehow are thinking, if I'm not attached, I must be attached. Yeah, you should be attached to helping that person, attached to serving that person. You should be attached out of affection, not out of the desire for sense gratification. That's where everything is ruined. So we think attachment, it means I want to enjoy. So from the material perspective, that's what it means. I want to enjoy you. But, we're attached to devotees. We're attached to their association. We're attached to being with them, not to enjoy them, but to enjoy Krishna consciousness in their presence, to churn the ocean. That's what it means. So that's why sadhusanga is so enjoyable, because we can churn the ocean. Okay. Does the Gaudiya Vaishnavism give importance to astrology if there is non-compatibility in matching? Should the marriage happen? It's better to avoid it if the planets are not good enough. I mean, there are things you can do. I mean, if you're already married, yeah, then it just means you're going to have to work more on it. Every marriage needs work. Every marriage is dynamic. Don't think that you're not going to have to work on a marriage. And the more incompatible you are, the more you're going to have to work on it. I was giving the analogy last week. We did a workshop on Grhasta Life, so I was thinking, think of two foods that really don't go together. You wouldn't mix them together if you were cooking. Like, let's say you have a banana, you wouldn't probably mix it you probably wouldn't smash a banana and put it on top of a baked potato. Or, happiness is being single, yeah. Especially if you had a husband who was not making you happy, yeah. It's hard to tell that to a 25-year-old girl, though, yeah. So let's say you make banana chutney and you put it on a beetroot sabji. It's just they're not meant to go together, right? But let's say I said, here's a banana and here's a beet, and you have to make them taste good together. So thinking, okay, how am I going to do this? Do I cook the banana? Do I keep it raw? Is there a sauce I could put on that would kind of kill the taste of the banana? Maybe I'll dye the banana purple so it looks like beetroot. Maybe I'll find beetroot flavoring and pour it on the banana. Maybe there's some sauce that evaporates all the flavor of the, so you could probably make it work, but it would take a lot of work to make it work, right? It's just you finally do it, and now you can't distinguish the taste of the banana from the beetroot. It almost tastes the same. But that was a lot of work. But let's say there's another vegetable and it goes really well with beetroot. I don't know if, maybe potatoes and beetroot go together. I don't eat beets, so I can't, but I think I've seen potatoes and beets. Is that right? Potatoes and beets are okay? Even if they're not okay? For the sake of discussion, potatoes and beets are okay. So, if you have potatoes and beets, maybe you have to spice it a little differently than you would just with beets alone. But it's a good combination, so it doesn't take so much adjustment. But with bananas, oh yeah, it takes a lot. It's going to take a lot to make it work. So it's better to mix vegetables that are meant to go together, because then they're always going to taste good. Peas and cauliflower. Cauliflower, potatoes, and peas, a good combo. They go together, but everything goes with potatoes practically. So you have the right combo, it requires less work. So that's why compatibility is important. It's kind of like, I'll give you another example. You have a tool and you have a job, but the tool you have is not ideally suited for the job, but you can kind of use it. Okay, I don't have a screwdriver, but I have a coin. But I need this leverage of a long screwdriver, and I have this coin. I can't get it tight enough with this, or I can't get into to reach it because my hand gets in the way. So, you can use that coin as a screwdriver, but, then you're going to have to get a pliers and hold the coin on the pliers and then turn it. It's just awkward. You understand? Wasn't meant for it. So that's like incompatibility. It's the wrong tool for the job. So that's the idea. So Krishna Karshani says, how do we know our expectations in marriage are not too high or out of reality? we may think there is nothing wrong with our expectations, and we may think that the spouse something supposed to fulfill. I have to Polish English. Supposed, S-U-P-P-O-S-E-D. Supposed to fulfill our expectations out of love. Should spouses talk about their expectations? Yeah. So, well, how do we know if the... Well, the thing is, it's not only what your expectations are if they're too high, because, maybe your expectations aren't too high, but they're too high for your spouse. So your spouse doesn't expect you to have those expectations, or he's not willing to fulfill them. So sometimes expectations are relative to the family. I expect my husband to buy me a large home with a swimming pool, but he doesn't have the money. So your expectations are not, they're not bad, they're just bad in that situation because it's impractical. If your marriage is having trouble, according to my wife, who studies this, the problem is that your spouse is not meeting your expectations. Now, I would say that our expectations should be reasonable. If our expectations are unreasonable, maybe our spouse can't ever fulfill them. So that's one consideration. They should be reasonable. And we all have expectations. We all have needs. According to my wife, the expert in this, that we should let our spouses know what our needs are. But we shouldn't say things like, well, I need a 17-bedroom house on 5 acres with a swimming pool. But to say, I need a secure place, I need you to have a secure job, that's reasonable. At the end of every month, there's not enough money, and the landlord's trying to kick us out. I need to have a secure material situation. I can't live like this. Okay, that's reasonable. The 17-bedroom mansion, and your husband, is a university dropout. He doesn't have a high-paying job. That's unreasonable. So, if you place unreasonable expectations on someone, it's unfair, right? And then, of course, as you advance, your expectations and your needs will change. You'll become more transcendental, a little more detached, more tolerant, and as you get older, more fulfilled, so you need less. But these are realities of Grihastha Ashram, that all of us have certain needs. And some of those needs are important to be fulfilled by our partner, and we should know those needs. So my wife said, in a marriage in which both partners are fulfilling one another's needs, you will have a really good marriage. And when those needs are not being met, that's when people start thinking about divorce. That's when they think about cheating on their spouse. That's when they become susceptible to becoming attracted to another person who's fulfilling those needs. So it's, Prabhupada said at the marriage ceremony, he said, the husband says, I will protect you. So part of protection means fulfilling those needs, because if the husband cannot fulfill the needs of the wife doesn't fulfill the needs of the husband, and they find someone else who can fulfill those needs, they may become attracted to that person. So, we are devotees, but still we're human, and we have needs, and naturally everyone wants to have a nice home, children, and so forth. So those are normal needs. And one of the biggest complaints women have is that their husbands are not good at emotionally supporting them. And so emotionally supporting them simply means not to put them down for how they feel, but to be supportive. So the women have a greater need to talk than men do. So men have to learn how to listen better. Men have a need to be respected. Women have to learn not to pull them down, not to criticize them, but to always respect them. So these are natural human needs. Prabhupada talks about it in the Bhagavatam. We're humans and we have needs. Prabhupada talks about this need of a man, the big ego need, the need to be respected. And anyone who studies anything about household life, any expert in the field of household life or male-female psychology will always say this, to say the exact same thing Prabhupada said. Men need to be respected. That's their nature. They need to be in control and respected. And when they're respected, they're happy. When they're pulled down, belittled, they're very upset. Men need respect, women need love, women need affection. Women especially need security. They have children. They need to know that they have a safe place to live, that there's sufficient income. So these are normal needs. Life gets boring when you have children. It's a routine. It's hard. We need variety. We need some vacations. We need to get away from the drudgery of daily life. Even Prabhupada said he wasn't, someone was trying to set up a schedule for him. Do this at this time, this at that time. Prabhupada said, I'm not a machine. So we all need variety. We all need to be honored, appreciated. So these are natural human needs. And so when people get married, it's very important that they find these needs fulfilled within the marriage. And so it's very important that the spouse understand what the needs of their spouse and fulfill them. And if they do, some men may say, yeah, but my wife, she wants so many things. But a lot of times she just wants your affection, and when she doesn't get it, she tries to replace that emptiness with stuff. So try giving more affection. See if she shops less. Shopping is just basically a drug. And it's also, there's social pressure to wear clothes that are in style, especially for women. There's social pressure to look good. So, we're under the influence of social pressure also. But the deeper needs, you help your wife spiritually, you help your husband spiritually, you help where there's a lack in your spouse in some way, you help one another, you make up for it. Then we'll be good. And I think one of the things that I've seen is that sometimes maybe we don't want to fulfill the needs of our spouse. We feel their needs are maybe too materialistic, or they're not Krishna conscious, or they're too extreme or whatever, but we have to be careful. Because an unfulfilled spouse does not make a good spouse. An unfulfilled spouse creates a disturbance in the family. So we need to learn how to fulfill the needs of our spouses. And automatically, or generally, if we fulfill their needs, they'll be happy, and they'll be happy to fulfill our needs. And that's what Krishna consciousness is really all about, whether it's families or friends. It's helping one another in whatever way we can be stable materially and spiritually. So that's the idea. So that's what I wanted to say, and I said it. So I'm going to sit back and wait for you to ask more questions about this detachment, this what maybe the assumption of detachment that could create problems in marriage. So Krishna Karshan, he said marriage is about fulfilling needs of others. What if our spouse is not able to do it, even trying? Women may have need of secure financial situation, but husband, even trying, is, I think she's going to say, not able. But husband, even trying, is struggling to maintain family. So what to do? Should wife accept the situation or look for another husband? If he's trying, then we have to accept it as our karma. She can also try. That's what it means to be married. Like you have your karma, your spouse has their karma. Maybe their karma is not as good as yours, and you have to live on according to their karmic level. Maybe you have this karma to make a lot of money, but now you have kids and you can't work, and so you got to accept the level of his karma. That's just, that's how it is. So what can be done? That's what it means to be married. It's like you have your life and your independence and your karma and your standard and whatever, but when you get married, it changes. And now it could, financially could get better or it could get worse, and other things could change. So that's what I meant by expectation. So when you get married, if you expect you're just going to go to the beach and have a good time and not have to do anything, you'll be disappointed when you find out you have to do something. But if you understood you were going to be working a little bit, but you acknowledge that a little bit of work for a $300 weekend, it's certainly worth it. So you'll get much out of Grhasta life, but you'll have to make sacrifices. And if your paradigm is to not make sacrifices, then you're going to have lots of problems in marriage, because it's full of sacrifices. And this paradigm is, I'm going to go into this relationship and I'm just going to enjoy. That's not a good paradigm. Because go into a relationship with a mood of service. That's the right paradigm. And you will not be surprised at all the service you will have to do. So, Erica's asking, in a relationship, I know everyone has their own time, and men often have to have time. You give him time to do his hobbies, etc., which he does himself, but it's not separate time with his wife. So shall I just detach wanting to have time together as attachment? No, wanting to have time together is a need. Men like a lot of time alone, but there has to be a balance. And, if you feel there's an imbalance, then you just tell your husband, I think there's an imbalance. You're spending a lot of time alone, but we're not spending time together. And so, relationships develop with time. Mm-hmm. So relationships where the husband and wife don't spend time together, that can work if they're happy, but with that, I don't think there's a particular rule of how much time. And that tends to happen more when couples have been married 20, 30, 40 years, but not always. So if you, I wouldn't call that an attachment, I would call that natural in a relationship. And that's pretty natural, and you're asking, should I just detach from it? Then my question would be, well, can you detach from it? Maybe you can. Maybe he doesn't like spending a lot of time with you. Maybe that's his nature. And you also can be happy spending time with yourself, and you can detach. So that's good. So you detach. But what if you can't? Most women, I would say, wouldn't like that until they're older, maybe. So Radha Priya is saying, when a person in a couple constantly commits offenses, and increasingly serious offenses, should you always forgive? Is there a limit? Or because we are devotees, should we be indifferent to offenses? Yeah, you should forgive, but it doesn't mean you don't have to do anything about it. Relationships are all about communication of your needs and what's working and what isn't working. So, to live with someone and have certain needs and feelings, or somebody is offending you and you don't talk about it, it's just going to get worse. That's why I would advise, before anyone marries, you want to see how, it's actually good to have problems before you get married, to see how you solve them. Because if there's a problem, one of the spouses says, well, I don't want to talk about it. That's not a problem-solving strategy. And so one should be aware, I want to marry this person, but when there's a problem, they don't want to talk about it, they don't want to own the problem, or they don't want to admit it, whatever. That's going to be very difficult. So you would say, no, we need to talk about it because we need to resolve it. It's not going to resolve on its own, and let's see how this works. And so sometimes before marriage, couples run into a big problem, and sometimes it's good because it reveals how well they can deal with problems. And if before marriage they don't deal well, that's a pretty bad sign. But if they run into problems but they sort them out, that's good. So you mostly sort it out through communication. So when one party shuts down and doesn't want to talk, it doesn't provide an opportunity to work on the problem. And so then it becomes a bigger problem. And sometimes men don't want to talk, but good wives will politely, kindly, affectionately talk to them and say, I don't want to put you down, but we just have this problem I want to talk about. And let's see what solutions we can come up with, because I'm not completely satisfied in this area. So that's just mature, normal. Every day is good to be your spouse. Every day is Be Good Your Spouse Day. Yeah. I said that once. Yeah. Bhairava's saying, in natural detachment, I believe understanding your own needs realistically is very important. Sometimes we think we are more detached, yes, and then we enter relationship and see that our true needs, true needs are totally different. So how do we truly understand our needs before that? Like you gave the example to me that girls usually enter relationships valuing emotional bond more over the financial stability, but later in their 50s they see financial stability is more important. What might be good to understand your needs is talk to someone you respect as both as a mature person and as a good devotee, and say, okay, I'm 29, thinking about marriage. Well, Bhairava's 29, so whatever your age is. And I'm thinking about marriage, and I sense that I'm not fully aware of all my needs because I'm still young, and right now I don't feel I need things that I've been told that couples do need, especially when they're older. So can you tell me, what do you think would be my needs that maybe I'm not aware of now? And they'll say something, to the woman who doesn't want kids, they'll say, kids? And you'll say, but I don't want them. They'll say, you will. So be aware of that. And yes, you will want financial stability. No, but I don't care so much about money. I'm happy to live in a small place. Well, when you have kids and they need to go to the doctor and you don't have money, that's going to be a problem. So things like that. And then it should make sense to you. Yeah. That these are natural things that are not unique to a few people, but are needs that we all have. And you may not be in a situation where those needs, you're aware of those needs, or you may not be old enough that those needs are really, you would be aware of them. When you're younger, you may have other needs. You have needs for more excitement, variety, and so forth. When you get older and you have kids, you have needs for stability. Radha Priya says, what's the difference between being humble and being humiliated? Good question. Sometimes there isn't a difference, but humiliated means you're embarrassed. I say, Radha Priya, I don't think you're so smart. And you say, yes, Krishna's smart, not me. That's being humble. Being humiliated would be, how dare you say I'm not smart? I've got, so many degrees and I have done so many things. Now you're being humiliated. So humiliated means you're being humbled, but you can't tolerate to be humble because your false ego doesn't like it. Humble means to accept my faults. Humiliated means I'm humiliated by my faults. I'm embarrassed by my faults. I've heard many times the statement that wife should be attached to her husband, but husband should be attached to Krishna. Could you explain it more? Well, one thing that's interesting in this discussion is that you have traditional models which don't apply. Because the model you're talking about, it applies to some degree, but not as significantly as in Vedic times, when in Vedic times, the men, Brahmins, Vaishyas, Brahmin, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas, went to Gurukula, but the women didn't go to Gurukula. So the husbands were well trained, and when they married, they would then be like the gurus for their wives who didn't go to Gurukula, and they would teach them what they learned. So the man should be more detached and the wife attached because her nature is to be attached, and he's more advanced, and it's good to be attached to people more advanced. But as we said earlier in the beginning, I don't know if you were here when we said this, but we were talking about detachment of the man is that he's not attached to enjoying his wife. But he's not detached from the relationship, and he's not artificially detached from the affection. And even we don't have material affection, but still we're affectionate. That's a devotee. He'll be affectionate. Prabhupada was very affectionate. Not materially, not to our bodies, but to us as souls. So you can be very affectionate and be detached. You're very affectionate. You want your spouse to be Krishna conscious. Right? How's that? That's okay. I think we have to be, when I was thinking about what to talk about, there's a whole other subset of this discussion, which is about what emotions are good, what emotions are bad, or just the topic of emotions. Like how do we deal with emotions? And if emotions are there, do we suppress them? Do we deny them? Do we run away from them? And in family life, there's, as mature devotees, we can be very affectionate, but very detached in the sense of attached to Krishna. So maybe I'm attached to doing service with my wife, but the attachment to the service is the main thing. We like to preach together, or we like to do puja together. We like to do so many things together. But if Krishna weren't there, it really wouldn't work. So the attachment is to Krishna. And any kind of attachment that we have for devotee or anything within Krishna consciousness, we have to see if it's helping us or hindering us. So it's possible I could be attached for the wrong reason. I'm very attached to my service, but maybe I'm attached to it because I want to become known as a great devotee. So I'm attached to the service, but I'm attached for the wrong reason. So that's material attachment. So I'm very attached to my wife because together we serve Krishna together. I had, once I was Sankirtan leader in San Diego. I had an assistant, and I traveled a lot. And so the assistant did all the work, all the research we had to do, all the booking of the hotels, and finding out where malls were, and sending us books. Whatever we needed, he did. And I was so attached to him because he was so efficient. And you tell him once, you didn't have to think about it. It was done. And so I just loved working with him. He was just amazing. And any person I've worked with who is highly talented and highly efficient and good at what they do, I become very attached to them because their service is enhancing my service to Prabhupada and Krishna. So I become very attached. I just love working with them. That's natural. It's just why would we want to suppress that? Because it's not an attachment that is based on sense gratification. It's based totally on service. Right? So I think sometimes in an immature state, we would try to suppress an emotion or ignore it because we feel it's detrimental, when in fact it may not be detrimental. We have to know how to employ emotion properly. And sometimes I think we're feeling the right emotion, but we feel that it's the wrong emotion. Okay, now the questions are going to get heavy. When you feel that you're being used in a relationship, what do? You write a song. No. That the couple has taken advantage of the qualities of the other, and now that you do not want to continue, the game is treated as something useless. What can be done? Can the person defend himself? I think defending oneself is necessary to prevent yourself from further damage. But if it's over and there's no more damage, then defending yourself is just retaliation. And that's a waste of your energy. I just gave a class. Maybe it was Tuesday night in Germany. And I think we talked about this idea that like Radha Priya, you have so much energy, but you don't have unlimited energy. So if you invest some of that energy in retaliation, that would be a waste. If you invest some of that energy in defending yourself, but it has no practical value other than just your own ego being satisfied, then that would be wrong. Generally, devotees don't defend themselves. Even sometimes our name is smeared. Others may defend us. But generally, it's not the mood of a Vaishnava to defend himself, unless you're being damaged, abused physically, emotionally, spiritually. Then you have to defend yourself. Right? Otherwise, you could be destroyed. But if it's not in self-preservation, but it's only in preservation of your ego, then that would be energy which is misused. And you want, I don't know what you mean by defend yourself, defend your name. I mean, if you had service to do and your service was being compromised because your name was being smeared, maybe in that case you may want to clear these things up so you can continue doing your service. Let's say someone made rumors about some devotee, and now the leaders of the movement are saying we have to suspend his service. But they're only rumors, he didn't do anything. And his service is very important. So then he'll want to defend himself, to defend the service, not to defend his ego. And in some cases, devotees will not defend their ego. They'll go, whatever happens, they'll accept it. Krishna wants this. So Vrindavan Leela says, why do some men think that it is okay to abandon their wives and children? Because they're irresponsible, or they fell in love with a younger woman? Because it goes back to my original point, because their paradigm for marriage is sense gratification, and now there's no more sense gratification. But you want to know the real reason? Because their wife is no longer, for many men, their wife is just, she's not physically attractive and her personality is not attractive. And when they were younger, they overlooked the personality because they were attracted physically and she was fun. But when they got married and the real work began, and years passed by, and that beauty has faded, and they're just dealing with her, and she's maybe not the nicest person. Sometimes they can't, it's like, let me give you an example. Like, why would you spit out chewing gum after you've been chewing it for 6 hours? So that's kind of, you're not getting anything from it. So it goes back to that fulfillment of needs, that needs aren't being fulfilled. And they're in a relationship, no needs are being fulfilled, and they're getting dominated by a wife, disrespected, and so forth. So that is often why they would leave. So if a man leaves you, at least don't be responsible for his leaving. If he leaves because he's irresponsible, he's weak or whatever, that's fine. It's not fine, but at least it's not your fault. But don't give him reasons to leave. Complaining, nagging, that would give him a reason to leave. I mean, I'm sure there's so many reasons why they leave their wives, but they're just not happy. They're not getting what they wanted. And again, if they entered marriage to get something that really marriage is not meant to give, and then when they don't get it, they leave, then that's unfortunate. Do we have to be free from attachment from wife or husband to come back to the spiritual world? Or this attachment is no impediment? We have to be free from material attachment. Material attachment is an impediment. When I was married, when was I married? I was married in 1993. And then 1997 we moved to Vrindavan, and my wife's still is, but especially then was very attached to Vrindavan, and it was like the most special place for her. So we spent 3 seasons there, 97, 98, 99, 2000, beginning of 2000 we came back. And I appreciated living in Vrindavan as one of the highlights of my life, my Krishna conscious career and my life. And, if I had a wife that didn't want to live there, I would never have that opportunity. So I appreciated so much that it was really her that, she was really wanted to be there. And so I appreciated so much that she wanted to be there that I felt that she gave me that gift. And she was very attached to Vrindavan. And it was like just so special. So she gave me that gift. And so naturally, there's going to be attachment to people who make you happy, who do things for you. Or, my wife is 25 years. How many meals has she cooked? At least one a day. Do the math. 365 times 25, what's that, like 7,000? So at least, so to not be attached, and I like the way she cooks better than anybody, so I'm attached to her cooking, which means I'm attached to her. But I travel many months of the year, and it looks like I'm detached, but I'm attached to her in the relationship, but detached in a way that I'm not emotionally dependent. I'm not dependent on sense gratification. So it is a detachment, but it's not a detachment from a relationship or from affection. If the attachment is like my husband helps me, my wife helps me in my devotional service, then that's a natural attachment. Just like we're attached to our gurus because they help us, or we get attached to any devotee that helps us in Krishna consciousness. We get somewhat attached to, and monks that help us a lot, we get very attached to, because Krishna is the most important thing for us. And here somebody's giving us Krishna, so what could be like better than that, right? So we naturally become detached. So when Prabhupada was asked this question, he gave a nice answer, and I really like his answer. He said, wife and children are natural objects of attachment, But there shouldn't be so much attachment that it becomes an impediment to your devotional service. So he wasn't saying, no, you shouldn't be attached. He was saying it's natural. But like any kind of sense gratification is natural. We like to eat, we need to sleep, we need so many things. But we shouldn't overdo it. So I think you can apply that principle to anything in marriage. You know? I'm very attached to my husband. Would you be attached to him if he gave up Krishna consciousness? You might say, yeah, it's the attachment is to the devotee, is to the service, is to the environment that's created in the home that becomes the foundation and inspiration for our service. So that naturally would be attached to that. Like you might be attached to your japa beads. Oh, I lost my beads, where are they? I once had cards back in the day before computers. I had cards, like 500 shlokas. And there was a system where you could pull shlokas out by category. It was a whole kind of card box, and it was stolen. And I went crazy. I was so attached to that. That was like, those were all my shlokas. And anytime I give a class, I could pick out the shlokas for that class, and just it would come out. You could separate the cards by categories, any category you wanted. And so maybe like 50 categories. You could choose 50 categories, and you could pull all the cards in all those individual categories. I was very attached. I went crazy for a few days when it was stolen. Somebody thought it was something that it wasn't, and they stole it out of a car. So, yeah. So Bhagavatam says, be attached to devotees. So be attached to serving your husband. Be attached to serving with him. Be attached to working together to be more Krishna conscious. Then yeah, that's what Krishna's given you, so you accept it. But don't be attached to sense gratification. That's not a Krishna conscious relationship. If Radha Priya says, if someone says something against a person, they tell lies, they damage the service that is being done, is it necessary to defend the position of the person? Are you talking about the person as you, or the person as something else, someone else? Is it not a lack of respect and non-Vaishnava? Definitely if it's somebody else, you should defend them. Yeah. If someone is speaking ill of another devotee, you may want to defend that devotee. Sometimes it's better to do nothing. It depends on the situation, but as a general principle, we would want to defend the reputation of a devotee who's innocent, who's being criticized. If it's yourself, as I said before, it will depend. The first response of a devotee would be not to defend myself. But if in not defending myself, my service is hampered, then I would have to defend or get people to defend. Krishna Kaushini says, I remember one girl asked you at Woodstock what to do to find the right husband, and you answered her, the solution is to become the right wife. I'm wondering, maybe the main problem is relationships is to be the right person and expect partner to be the right person, and that is why the relationship is not working. So it looks like to find the right partner, you have to be the right person, meaning we have to have the right consciousness. Yeah, it always, everything, every relationship you have, the way you make it better is to be the right person. I think it's super important. I mean, that's the whole paradigm of marriage should be focused on how I can be better and how I can serve, and then you'll have a good marriage. If the paradigm is how I will be served and how I will get, which is usually what it is, and it's usually why people want to be married. A lot of people want to be married and they don't have a practical reason why. They just want to enjoy the other person. But for us in Krishna consciousness, the reasons for being married are very practical spiritually, and helping us grow individually and as a couple. The cards were self-made. What cards? Did I miss something about cards? Or is that a misspelling? And Vrindavan's question also, why do men think they can abandon their wives? It's immaturity. Sometimes men are raised without a father, so they don't have a good role model, or a bad father, bad role model. So, okay, anything else? We'll do class tomorrow at the same time, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. The shloka cards. Oh yeah. Cards are self-made, yeah. I actually have, believe it or not, hold on everyone. Where is it? Oh, don't go away. Okay, let me tell you the story. I made these shloka cards with another devotee, so we each had our own box. And when I got my box stolen later, I met him and he gave me his box. I want to show you it, but I have to unplug from the recorder because I have a... Okay. Wow. I know, a lot of shlokas in here. Hold on. I forgot all about this shloka box. This is crazy. So, here's a shloka on a card. And it's got holes. See these holes? Right? And on the back, we have the translation. Oh yeah. See where the holes are punched out? This was before computers. God, those of you who are young are going to think this is crazy. See where these holes are punched out? Let's explain why. So I have all these shlokas. How many shlokas do I have? How many cards? About a pile like this of cards. This is like half of them. These are all shlokas. And I think I know all of them, or most of them. So, you line these cards up in a box, and I categorized all these shlokas into categories. And you have a little metal stick, and I don't have it, I don't know where it is. I have a little metal stick. Oh, this is so funny for you young folks. You're just going to think this is crazy funny. So, as I said, see how these are cut? Right? So that means this shloka comes into 5 different categories. So we number the categories. As I said, you could have up to 65 categories. So we would put a stick through the box, like a metal stick, and you say, okay, this is category 2. So we'd have all our cards like this, but I have a stack like this long. We put a metal stick through, and everything that was cut out with a 2, the card would fall out. Like this card is 5, it wouldn't fall. This card is a 2, so this card would fall. This is a 1, it wouldn't fall. So you have this stick. Isn't this funny? You're like, this is how we used to live. I spent you don't imagine how much time I spent on this. So we have this stick. It's got all these cards this long on a stick, and we shake it, and all the ones that are cut out fall out. We pick them up, and we go, okay, here are all the shlokas. Here are all the shlokas on that topic. Isn't that funny? And we spent, we picked all the shlokas, we photocopied them, we cut them, we pasted them on the card with the Sanskrit. Yeah. I totally forgot about this. You realize what kind of brahmachari I was? I was crazy. Look at this many cards of shlokas, and I know them all. And more. I mean, I don't know if I know them now. I have to dust them off. So, all you people born in the computer age, this is what your forefathers did when one of the things they did to separate shlokas. And I have empty cards here, so if anybody wants them, let me know. Yeah, this is funny, crazy. And these shlokas were like, I was so attached to this box of shlokas. You have no idea how attached I was. And now I can't find the instrument. Yeah, look what it came with. It came with this cutter. See, this is how you would take a category, and then you would cut it. See, I just cut it. And so when you put the piece through, that's number 8. You put your little little stick through it, number 8 would fall down. Whereas if it's not cut, it goes through the holes and it doesn't come out. So that's it, everyone. Maybe I'll auction off my cards to the highest bidder. We'll start at 10,000. Okay? How's that sound? Wow, I found more. More cards. Oh my God. I don't have so many blank cards. I thought I did. Okay. This whole box, I used to know enough shlokas to fill this box. Crazy brahmachari. I wasn't crazy, but I was crazy about shlokas. That's for sure. I was a little crazy sometimes. Not that crazy, but a little bit. Anyway, I lived in a motorhome. Come back from Sankirtan, we'd make our cards up and learn shlokas, sit around and learn shlokas. What else do you do if you're brahmachari but sit around and learn shlokas? Yeah, this is vintage. It could be my museum, right? The Mahatma Museum. Someone would come to Alachua and steal my box of cards. Look at so many shlokas. And I know all of them. Oh my God, this is crazy. I learned all these verses. I'll just have to pick out a bunch of cards and just give class. So many Bhagavad Gita shlokas. It's mostly Bhagavad Gita. Tavakatam nitam tapta jivanam kaviriditam kalamasapaham shravana mangalam Shrimaratatam bhuvigananti ye burida janaha. Bhagavatam 10:31. Prahlad Maharaj, no vijay paradaratya vaitaranya. Oh my God, I know all these shlokas. So I forgot so many. Okay, we're going to end with a shloka. And this shloka, note this down. This is from the 10th canto, 90th chapter, text 48. You'll also find this in the Madhya Lila 1379. Sometimes CC has verses from, it has verses. From the Bhagavatam. And Prabhupada told us that when we wake up in the morning, we should chant this verse. He told us that. So I'm going to Jayati Janani Vaso Devaki Janmavado Jarubara Parisat Svahidovis Yandanarvam Sterachara Bijnagna Shushmita Simukena Vajavara Vanitanam Bharayam Kamadevam. Ladies and gentlemen, you are supposed to chant this verse every day when you wake up. That verse right there. Can you see it? I'll read the translation. Lord Sri Krishna, who is known as Janani Vas, the ultimate resort of all living entities, and who was also known as Devaki Nandana, or Jasoda Nandan, the son of Devaki and Jasoda, is the guide of the Yadu dynasty. With his mighty arms, he kills everything inauspicious, as well as every man who is impious. By his presence, he destroys all things inauspicious for all living entities, moving and inert. His blissful, smiling face also increases the lusty desires of the gopis of Vrindavan. May he be all glorious and happy. This is 10:90:48 Bhagavatam. So you're all supposed to memorize this. And ladies and gentlemen, these cards are 43 years old. Probably older than most of you. Isn't that crazy? 43 years ago, I was making these cards when you were, I don't know what you were doing 43 years ago. But anyway, Prabhupada said, learn this verse. Yeah, I always chant this if you're ever with me, and most of you are with me, you're not even up when I wake up. But if you are, and you hear me chanting something, this is the verse I'm chanting. Jayati, all glories, Janani Vas, the resort of the universe. Devaki, Janmavado, the son of Devaki. 10:90:48. Or you can find it in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela, chapter 13, text 79. 43-year-old shloka cards. Oh my God. Crazy. Crazy, crazy. Here they are. All right. On that happy note, yeah. And then this devotee, what he did, this was interesting because these are his cards. He put on the back of these shlokas, he put points from the purport. So this is Bhagavad Gita, and now he's got 5 points from the purport on the back. So if you're studying to give class, all the shlokas on the topic come out, and then he had main points from the purport. Now, you won't believe this, because I don't do this anymore, but when I was doing this system, I had so many shlokas, like on the tip of my tongue, that when I will give a class, I could just go through my mind and pick out every shloka I knew from every chapter of the Gita. And so sometimes I would quote like 30 or 40 shlokas in a class, and everyone was bored to tears. I noticed that. The more shlokas I quoted, the more bored they were. I think that made an impression on me because I think I used to bore people to death with shlokas. So I'm not I don't chant shlokas that much anymore. Maybe I need to balance it out. But yeah, here they are. Wow. Crazy. Should I just give a class of shlokas someday? Yeah. Anyway, I used to shlokas were I got so much strength from chanting shlokas, I remember. You should try it. If you're ever in Maya, of course I know you never are, but if you ever are in Maya by some chance, just chant shlokas and see what happens. Of quite a interesting phenomena. The power of these shlokas. Just chant, get some shlokas and just chant them and read them. You know, get your shloka cards going. Chant shlokas. We have shloka books also. Okay, what a discovery. Mahatma shlokas. All right, so we'll see you tomorrow. Is that okay? Hare Krishna. Yeah. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaura Prema.